Hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here, fresh back from Africa. Well, I don't know how fresh I am, still working through a little bit of jet lag. I have a copy here of a text that was sent to me. It was put together by Wycliffe Bible translators, great people. It is a translation of the New Testament into a Nigerian language. The reason why this copy was sent to me is a former student of mine went on to get into Bible translation. He was so excited, he remembered me teaching the Bible from a Jewish perspective, and he just thought I'd be interested in this. And indeed, I am interested to see what my students have been all about. I'm interested in this as well. The red version here goes to the Nigerian people. This one goes principally, not exclusively, but it's a Jewish rendition designed to help Jewish people come to know the Lord and help Christian people come to know the Jews. And I'm particularly excited about it. We are in the book of Acts, called Acts of the Apostles, mistakenly in my opinion, because it's principally about the Acts of the Apostle Paul. And he is on a journey, as we've been following in the 14th chapter. Here, I'm going to pick up in verse 19 and go down to verse 23. There's not a lot of text I want to survey, but there's some important things in these few texts. We're told that Paul has made his way from Iconium in chapter 14, verse 1. He's out and about on an enterprise sharing the gospel as he goes. And we're told in verse 19, Jewish people came from Antioch and Iconium. And after they won the crowd over and stoned Paul, they were dragging him out of the city, supposing him to be dead. Not a very good meeting. This is read, by the way, as is often the case. Oh, those Jews are just resisting, and there they are trying to kill the apostle and thwarting the advancement of the gospel. I only want to note here, while we do read in verse 19 that Jews came from Iconium and they were hell-bent on the demise of this apostle, it's worth noting as well at the beginning of the chapter, Paul's in Iconium and Jewish people are following him as well. I think we need to balance this thing out. You know, it's the truth of the matter is a guy like Paul made friends wherever he went and enemies as well. Friends of the Jews and enemies. It's not there's something unique about Jews, it's just there's something challenging about the gospel that pushes people one way or the other. We're told that they supposed him to be dead. They thought he killed him and knocked him out of commission. This to me is interesting, by the way, because if you walk with the Lord and do ministry for him or just whatever, sometimes it seems like you're knocked out of the equation. You know, circumstances have imposed upon you in such a way where you think you're finished, or maybe others think you're finished, or maybe both think you're finished, you and others. But it ain't over till it's over. Paul looks dead, but he really isn't. And there are times, too, in ministry, you run out of energy, you run out of money, it looks like it's all over. But it ain't over yet. Paul, we're told in verse 20, but while the disciples surrounded him, he got up. Now, they drag him out of the city thinking he's dead, but then the disciples gather around him, he gets up. And I would have gotten up and just kept walking away from the city, but not this man. What happens is the disciples gather around him. I assume they prayed, and he emerges, he resuscitates. And then he goes right back into the fire. I mean, I'd be inclined to run away from it. It's like police officers and firemen are kind of crazy. Why do I say that? Because most people, if they hear gunfire, they run from it. Most people, if there's a fire in a house, they run from it. Some people, when there's a fire in the house, they run to it. Some people, when there is gunfire, they go to it. Police and firefighters. Well, okay, but here, this apostle is drug out of the city, half dead, been beaten up by the mob, assumed to be dead. But what does he do when he kind of regathers himself? He goes back to the fire. This man's got chutzpah. He has got a message to tell. He does not give it up. And a lot of times people get beaten up in ministry, they just walk away from it. There's a large death toll. People that used to be in the ministry but went in other direction. This guy, by the way, I'm sympathetic. There's challenges in ministry. You run out of friends, you run out of money. I get it while people want to dart. But this guy goes back to the game. I just love it, by the way. It takes a kind of boldness, a kind of intransigence to not give it up. And he's got what it takes here, to be sure. We're told in verse 20, he got up and went back to the city. And then in verse 21, after proclaiming the good news, and making disciples. They returned to Lystra and Iconium to Antioch. These people just go right back to where it all started. They are not to be dissuaded. There's a summation of his message and ministry here that I want to note in verse 22. They encourage, they strengthen the believers, and they say, and I quote, "It is through many persecutions that we must enter the kingdom of God." I want to just put the landing gear down on this note to say that it's not always really easy. Christianity is marketed in lazy North American culture as the answer to all your problems. Here, it can be the source of the problems. I mean, the way it's marketed in the literature here, that the world would leave you alone, but you want to believe in Yeshua, therefore hell's got an assignment against you. This isn't exactly North American easy believism now, is it? Sometimes there is a price to pay. I understand it to be normative, that there are persecutions that we must, through many persecutions, we must enter the kingdom of God. That this apostle will have us believe that there are challenges, there are testings, there are things that we go through. As I finish up this read on the text, and I'm really only interested in 19 through 23, I want to consider that verse with you, that there are persecutions that we must go through to enter the kingdom of heaven. My wife and I just returned from Africa. We were in Harare, Zimbabwe, teaching. It was in the physical plant. The college was an Assembly of God Bible College. And there's a program there put on under the auspices of the Messianic Jewish Bible Institute, reaching to lost tribes as a group in Nigeria called the Lemba people, Jews who have kind of been disassociated with Jewish culture but maintained an oral tradition of being Jewish. Very, very fascinating story. And I went there to teach a course on the spectrum of the Jewish religion, plus what they called in their degree program the latter epistles of Paul, 9 of his documents that Rabbi Paul wrote. What was interesting to me is when I sat down to teach, when I'm looking at them, they all have Bibles on their desks. And the Bible that they all had on their desk was the Tree of Life version of the Bible. But it's not TLV text that they purchased, but rather it's TLV text that you purchased for them through your donations. I wasn't expecting that. I took a snapshot of it and sent a picture to our president, Danya Greenberg, to encourage her that the word is going out. Sometimes it seems the money bleeds out. Money is spent on publications that the Bible Society doesn't recoup a dime for. We give it away. These are giveaway texts because we believe we got the story straight. Now we want to get the story out. And I want to thank you, by the way, for carrying along with us and lifting up our burdens with us to help the ministry of the Tree of Life Bible Society. It's great work. I know that Danya and the team have realized that there are persecutions that we go through to enter the kingdom of God. I'm sure you've realized it your own way, but I'm a little closer to the trials and troubles associated with getting the word out with the TLV. And I want to encourage you, please, to get the support out to help us get the word out. Well, Jeffrey Seif coming to you from my home office. Glad to be here, by the way. Still dealing with a little bit of jet lag as I just got back from Africa. But glad to be with you and continue the journey to and through the book that is called Acts of the Apostles. God bless.